all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of any of the other channels? And that's because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's turning into something truly, truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, where finally, Brew is going to announce his Super Bowl pick. He goes back and forth, and I'm really curious to see if he's going to end up picking the Chiefs, or if he'll finally, or if he'll just go against them, and pick the 49ers. It's going to be really interesting. And so rather than talk about it, let's just see what he has to say, and then we can break it down from there.
From Brew's official Super Bowl pick.
Wow.
And he has been grinding. We told you all week.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, congratulations. You made it, buddy. You made it. Just hold on. It's
great.
First Things First today. All right, well, let's kick it off. We start with the moment we've all been waiting for, the Super Bowl of Super Bowl picks. Chris Broussard, who has been on a legacy-defining streak of accurate predictions, dating back to the Warriors, to be honest with you.
That's right. Yeah.
Has grinded the All-22, consulted experts, and for some reason has been jumping rope. All for this moment. So without further ado, Brew, who wins Super Bowl 58?
Well, look, as you guys saw, it wasn't easy.
No.
I mean, I needed the physical exercise because I was spending hours at that board going over the plays, the Chiefs plays, what Spags might do, what Reed might do, so on and so forth. So I just needed a little physical relief. That's what that was about when I'm spending the night here. And people might think it was easy. You might think it was easy because, look, the Chiefs, I've said all week, and that my 2 weeks of study did not change my mind on the Chiefs should be favored.
Okay.
I'm still shocked that the Niners, not that they don't have a chance, but I was shocked that they're favored. Because, look, the Chiefs have been better in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They got the best quarterback in the world.
Yeah.
They got the best coach, arguably, right now in the world. They've got the defense that has been better than the Niners this year, at least certainly lately. And they've got the experience. Now, but what tripped me up,
What else?
The Niners are not without hope, though.
Oh.
Because the Chiefs play man coverage about as much as anybody. They can go zone. They win some zone against Miami, but they like to play a lot of man. And the Niners are great against man with their, with Kittle and all their weapons, Debo and all those guys. They got a lot of weapons, so they eat up man. Spags loves to blitz. I mean, he devastated the Ravens with the blitz. Guess who's the best quarterback in the league against the blitz?
Don't tell me Purdy.
Yeah, look at that. Yards per pass. This is all against the blitz. Pass TDs, passer rating. He eats up the blitz, and they as a team eat up man coverage. Also, Nick, if it's not a weakness, but the weakest part of the Chiefs defense, I would say, is the run defense, all right? 15 of their 20 games, including the playoffs, they gave up more than 100 yards rushing. So we know that Niners have the best running back in the world. So and the thing about Shanahan, he will not go away. If it's working, he won't go away from it like for some reason Baltimore did. All right, so I took all of that into consideration. And then there's another factor.
There's more?
It's called mojo.
Yeah, this is...
Kyle Shanahan, is he going to fail again? I mean, this is 3 times on the big stage. I mean, including the championship
Do you think he's
games.
on pumpkin alert?
I don't know. I wouldn't say pumpkin alert like you said, but he better win. He needs to win this game. Also, the Niners have been, you could argue they should have lost the.
So I just wanted to pause because first off, Brew is taking a very long time to get to this. He's really milking this out. And then I feel like he's going to, when he announces, he's going to say, I think San Francisco. He's going to maybe be real big, bold. But I just wanted to point out real fast that I don't think Shanahan has to win this game. I've said this repeatedly. We see Andy Reid as one of, if not the best head coaches in general in the history of the game, or at the very least, one of the best, if not the best, offensive head coach in the game. If you want to give it to like Bill Belichick or something, then, you know, at least you can say offensive. And it took him 19 years to win. And Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT. So why does Shanahan have to win this game? Especially if it turns out that Brock Purdy isn't, you know, the next Tom Brady, which I'm not saying he is or he isn't. We're not getting into that right now. But my point is like, why should he expect to be able to do that? Why should he expect to be able to beat the Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, why should that be on? Andy Reid never had to beat a Patrick Mahomes. In fact, he lost to Tom Brady, you know, and Patrick Mahomes has only beat in the Super Bowl, has never, you know, beat Garoppolo. Wow, congratulations. And then he beat an up-and-coming Jalen Hurts, which a lot of people don't, there's plenty of people, especially Chiefs fans, don't think Jalen Hurts is that good. And so if that's the case, it's like, wow, congratulations. You beat two not-so-great quarterbacks. So, again, like, which is it? And in fact, the only good quarterback you did play against, you got destroyed. And that was against Tom Brady. And you could point out that the offensive line and this, that, and that's fine. But regardless is that a lot of people, a lot of Chiefs fans specifically, do not think Jalen Hurts is that good. And I know they don't think that Garoppolo is that good. So then you beat two not good quarterbacks. So why is the pressure on Shanahan to beat this bona fide, without a doubt, no one can question Patrick Mahomes? How is that even remotely fair? It's not.
The last two games, but they found a way. And while I think the Chiefs should definitely be the favorite, I know they're not for some reason. We've seen a lot of upsets in Super Bowls.
Okay.
I mean, Tom Brady upset by Nick Foles. Tom Brady upset by Eli Manning. Tom Brady himself as a first-year starter upsets Kurt Warner in the greatest show on turf. Gentlemen, please remove the hats.
Oh my gosh.
You're not
My
going to do it.
pick.
Drew.
Excited.
You're not
My
going to do it
pick.
for the third straight.
I hate to ruin what would be a wonderful trip to Kansas City
No,
next week.
he's not
But
doing
give me
it.
the
Wow.
Niners! Give me the Niners!
I did not see that happening. I thought, oh my God.
This is objective. Give me the Niners. Yes.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow.
I'm shocked.
I am too. This is going to ruin our Wednesday.
If people think that you got to go against the Chiefs.
No.
I could pick whichever team I want.
totally convinced. And I was so convinced Brew was going to pick the Chiefs. That's why we have waited until today for this. Brew obviously had to do all his research.
Yeah.
But I was so convinced you were going to pick the Chiefs. I was like, well, if you pick them on Monday, a lot of the rest of the week of shows is going to feel anticlimactic. This is going to be your worst time going against the Chiefs. Because you picked the Bills to beat them.
The last time was pretty bad.
No,
the Ravens.
Well, you picked the Bills to beat them, and that game was close. You picked the Ravens to beat them, and that game, the final score was close, but it didn't feel close. Yep. This game, the final score will not be close, and it will not feel close. Wilds, you know my theory on when to put on a winter coat?
Oh, yeah. I don't love this theory, but it is a theory.
So it is. I'm a big believer in getting acclimated. I'm a big believer in the winter, I will wait as long as possible to put on a coat, so then when it's actually really cold, the coat actually provides me some warmth, as opposed to I was wearing it when it's 40 degrees out. Kansas City has been getting acclimated to tough postseason opponents, and now they get a breather. Kansas City had to go from Josh Allen to Lamar Jackson, and now they're down to Brock Purdy. This would be like if in...
But, again, by Nick's own admission, he always says that Josh Allen isn't that great, and that the coaching isn't that great, and that team's not that great, and that they're always, crown champions in September, but they're never that good in the playoffs. So why would beating them be that special then? And also it's funny that he actually admitted that it was a close game when before he acted like they had no chance. So again, which is it? And then if you want to say the Ravens, he also said that Lamar Jackson is essentially James Harden, who can't play in the playoffs, who's not that good. And so in the playoffs, but great during the regular season. And if that's the case, if that's who Lamar Jackson is, then why is beating him that impressive? There's nothing impressive about beating James Harden in the playoffs because he's not good in the playoffs. So, and again, I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is that. This is Nick's own words, okay? Rewind the tape. He said this many times. So if that's the case, then why is it that impressive? He thought that he literally said he doesn't trust Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, and he had the Texans with rookie quarterback CJ Stroud winning like 10 plus points. I forget, maybe 2 touchdowns, I forget, but it was a lot against the Ravens. And now all of a sudden beating them is special or is good, is getting acclimated. How so then? Doesn't really make sense to me.
Mike Tyson's punch out. You had King Hippo, then you beat Mike Tyson, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, before you win, Soda Popinski's coming through. You're like, well, that's easy. I just beat Tyson.
Video game from 20 years
yeah,
ago.
30 years, really closer to 40 years ago, but the audience gets it.
Go ahead.
Kansas City's defense, on the other hand, has just dealt with the Baltimore Ravens defense, the only defense in football that had an argument they were better than the Chiefs this year, and Kansas City found a way to move the football on them. What have the Niners been doing?
They scored
the
17
Niners
points.
Have been defensively going up against the Packers. Don't argue anything about it, Wilds. They were a bad defense.
But the Packers were surging and were playing great football.
And the Lions, who were a bad defense.
They were such a bad defense, such a bad team, yet they beat the Rams, who Nick Wright said could make it to the Super Bowl and is a dark horse and really, really good and are ascending at the right time, and yet the Detroit Lions beat them. So again, he's so inconsistent with his analysis. Whether the game ends up being close or not, that's fine. Seriously, that's fine. Whether the Chiefs smoke the 49ers, that's definitely a possibility. But it's not because of what Nick is saying is the reason why. Because his reasons didn't make sense a few weeks ago, and as the games unfolded, they don't make sense, and they don't make sense now. Because if you really want to parse it up then you could say, like, if he really wants to be this nitty-gritty and this kind of talk about, the X's and O's, well, then point out that that if it was really that close of a game against the Chiefs, against the Bills, then point out that the Bills absolutely could have won that game if they didn't drop at least one of those 3 passes. Point that out. And if it was really that amazing that the Chiefs moved the ball against the Ravens, explain how they only scored 17 points. And admit that could have been a touchdown if Flowers wasn't a fool and reached out across the end zone, which you're taught not to do since football 101, as well as getting the taunting penalty. Like acknowledge those things. Because if those games were really that impressive of a win, or they were actually that competitive, then admit that it was very close to the Chiefs easily could have lost. I mean, you're acting like whatever the 49ers did against the Detroit Lions and the Packers is nothing. The Packers demolished the Cowboys, who Nick Wright gave his formal prediction that the Cowboys will make the Super Bowl. So the Packers knocked out his Super Bowl pick. So please tell me how that makes sense then. Seriously, tell me how you can get to where he's getting based off of the reasons that he's giving. You can make the argument that the Chiefs will destroy the 49ers. I'm not debating that, but I'm debating and disputing his reasons why. Makes no sense.
What have they gone against quarterback-wise? And now they're going up against the best defense in football, Kansas City. Quarterback-wise, Jordan Love, who's a good player but overachieved at the end of the year, first year in the postseason, and Jared Goff, who's a fine player, and now you are going up against someone who is trying to become the greatest player of all time. And this postseason, despite the Chiefs having the far harder path of opponents, how have they done in those games? How have they looked? If we can show it to you,
They say they've gone against harder opponents, which he knows is just not accurate, okay? Because he knows the Dolphins team was never that good by his own admission. He said this again and again and again and said that the Dolphins won't be able to do anything in the cold weather, especially Tua, and that Tua is not that good of a quarterback. So cross that off the list, so clearly not that good of a team. Now the Bills. The Bills, we've already been through the other parts, but I'll just say their defense was decimated. Their defense, they literally were signing people off of the literal street, off the couch, practice squad guys, okay? So please tell me how that is impressive. The most impressive win is indeed the Ravens. I will absolutely concede that. But let's be honest here. That game plan against for the Ravens was atrocious. It had nothing to do with the Chiefs' defense as to why the Ravens suddenly said, we're just not going to run the ball. We averaged 32 carries a game, but instead for the playoffs, we're just going to hand the ball off only 6 times. And the other 10 are just going to be kind of scrambled / runs. That had nothing to do with the Chiefs' defense. Nothing. Any person who knows anything about football, who's not just a diehard Chiefs fan, can admit that. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you should just be really happy about that. And just be like, yeah, we outcoached them, right? If you want to make that argument, we outcoached them, that's fine. That I can get behind. But I don't know what the Ravens did in that moment. And you're not going to get that from the 49ers. The 49ers played the Packers. Matt LaFleur is a brilliant head coach. A brilliant offensive head coach. Brilliant. Okay? Make no mistake about it. With a really fiery up-and-coming team that is on track to be a competitor for years to come. So now all of a sudden we're just knocking that. Jordan Love was one of the best quarterbacks in the last 10 games of the season or whatever the exact run was. I think post-Thanksgiving or whatever. He was literally a top 3 quarterback or something. So again, you're knocking that, who get demolished on the road against Nick's Super Bowl pick. And then the Detroit Lions, why all of a sudden are we acting like they're just suddenly not a good team? Or that Jared Goff literally has proven to be a great top 5 quarterback. I mean, he is. His stats show that. He is a really, really, really good quarterback. Okay? There's no disputing that. So just to act like that wasn't a tough win or that's not a tough out, it doesn't make any sense. It's asinine. With an amazing offensive coordinator too, in Ben Johnson.
The Chiefs have controlled all 3 games, trailing for just 12% of the time. The Niners have lived from behind. And then I will add one last thing on this note. Brock Purdy this year, when the Niners have lost, has played poorly. And we can show it to you, and what you are going to see against a dominant Chiefs defense that led the league in batted passes, which is a big problem for an undersized quarterback that, as Bruce says, does not have a great offensive line in front of him. You're going to see passes batted down. You're going to see Brandon Ayuk erased by L'Jarius Sneed, because if you can erase Justin Jefferson and the best receiver, Tyreek Hill twice, you can erase Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle and his 40 playoff yards per game doesn't scare anybody. And unless Christian McCaffrey pulls off a Terrell Davis in the 97 Super Bowl, this isn't America. This should be an epic, but it won't be. 31-13. Kansas City.
Wow.
And to be fair, I did not call for a blowout against Baltimore. I called for a 6-point game. And against Buffalo, I said 34-24, and it did 27-24 thanks to a fumble at the goal line. So I have not been calling for blowouts throughout this post.
Thanks to a fumble at the goal line. If you say that, then you have to say thanks to the drop passes. Thanks to the missed field goals. You can't just pick and choose when you want to say, well, that only happened because of this. You can't do that. That's not how it works. It doesn't make any sense.
Season, I think this is the weakest opponent Kansas City's played since Miami in round 1.
Which is interesting because obviously most of the year they looked like the best team until they struggled, and then Baltimore waxed them, and then Baltimore looked like the best team. 5 weeks ago, it would have been they would have been a heavier favorite. Now, I don't even think they should be favored, but they would have been a heavier favorite. So I expect that defense was bad last week or 2 weeks ago, but I think they're going to bounce back. They got some pride.
Okay. You're really rolling with the Iowa Mafia, big time.
Are we moving on, Wilds?
Yeah, but I'm going to ask one more question.
Yeah, but good, because I got something as well. But go ahead.
The question is this, Brew.
Wilds is shocked.
I'm
shocked.
Nick, both of you guys are shocked.
I'm shocked.
You're disappointed.
I'm not disappointed. Well, a few things for the audience. One, the way this show works, to be 100% honest with you, it's a little bit like when you believe in Santa Claus when you're 11 years old. Mm-hmm. You're I kind of have a feeling what's going on here, but I'm going to go along with it. I kind of have an idea of when the banners drop. I kind of, I got a sense of it.
Right.
I had no idea this was coming. Zero. The second reason I'm a little bit disappointed is because I feel like you know better.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do.
In your decades of journalism, there's a certain tenet that belongs right up there next to the phrase that I coined, defense wins championships.
Yeah.
And that's don't bet against greatness. And however good you think Brock Purdy is, we know that there is one guy who is undebatably great. And to pick against him, yes, in the Super Bowl seems like it goes against.
But then, how did LeBron James lose in the NBA Finals? Why doesn't Steph Curry win every single NBA Finals? Kevin Durant. The only example you have, Michael Jordan, right? He obviously won every time, but he didn't win every single year. He only won 6 out of, whatever. So this idea to never bet, literally Patrick Mahomes lost in the Super Bowl, lost to Joe Burrow in the championship game. So this idea to just never bet against greatness. Tom Brady lost to Nick Foles, lost to Eli Manning, not once, but twice. And Tom Brady also lost in other games as well, right? He did not win 20 plus Super Bowls. So that doesn't really make sense. You can't just do this blanketing. Is it a safe bet? Sure, right? Is it a better bet? Sure. But this isn't Brock Purdy against Patrick Mahomes. This is the Chiefs versus the 49ers. So I just think, I don't know. Honestly, I think it's so funny because originally I was not rooting for this matchup. I really wasn't. I wanted something different, something more interesting. I wanted to see the Bills or the Ravens, and I wanted to see. I was really actually pulling for the Detroit Lions or the Packers because those are just two great stories to me. If it was the Packers and Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, right, left and wasn't able to play, then Jordan Love, his first year being like the true starter, goes to the Super Bowl. Like, that's really cool. As well as Detroit Lions, it's hard not to root for them, just how much their fan base has suffered, and Jared Goff, and it's been so emotional, and that would have been really cool to see them get to the Super Bowl. And then really the 49ers, like, obviously I'm also, really happy to see what Brock Purdy can do. So it's not to say that Brock Purdy doesn't have an amazing story as well, but it is a little different when you've seen Shanahan already obviously make it to multiple, to the Super Bowl, as well as Debo, and Kittle, just other 49ers have obviously had that success. But not necessarily Christian McCaffrey and Purdy. And those are players that you want to see in the Super Bowl. So by no means am I disappointed. And I also just didn't want to have the same repeat of a 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl. Again, I like variety personally, but I don't have anything against those teams whatsoever. As I've said a million times, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, the GOATs. But with all that being said, I am pretty happy that we have this matchup because I think it's so much trickier. I really, really do. And I think the 49ers have given us reasons to kind of give us some question marks. I had said this now for weeks, that the 49ers were never as good as they were perceived. And I said this before the Ravens game. I said that I think that the Ravens will really expose the 49ers, and that the 49ers were beating up on a lot of bad teams, and the big reason why the 49ers were seen as so amazing was because they beat up teams like the Eagles and the Cowboys, which also proved to never be that good. So I said, I think the stock for the 49ers is a little inflated. And then they got rocked against the Ravens, obviously. And then they had 2 tight games in the playoffs. And I've already outlined why I think that that's okay and not the worst thing, that those 2 teams that they beat were good. But it just shows the lack of dominance, I should say, which again, that's okay. And on the flip side, though, I look at it as the Chiefs. The Chiefs were also not dominant this season. Their defense was great, but their offense was really, hot and cold. I mean, it just was. It was very inconsistent. No matter why you want to put the blame on it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that their offense was not that good this year. Okay, that's just a fact. And so now when you look at their playoff games, their games were also relatively close. And again, it's not impressive to beat Tua and the Miami Dolphins in freezing cold weather at home. It's just not. Anyone knew that game was not going to go well. That Tua, the coldest he ever played in his life was something like 50 degrees or something, okay? So he's warm-blooded to the core. And you just know, and again, what makes their game, what makes the Dolphins special, what is also their lightning quick speed and all of that, and you're not able to really do that in the freezing cold as much. It's just a different style of play. Not to mention their defense was also decimated. Their defense was injured. The Bills decimated defense, and they still almost won. So again, you can point to all these reasons why the Chiefs won, just like you can point to all the reasons why the 49ers won. And I know it seems like with both fan bases, I'm not going to win any points by saying that, and that's fine. But the truth is that these two teams earned their right to be in the Super Bowl, mainly, more than anything, because they were able to withstand the mistakes of the other teams. They were able to outlast them, not so much by their respective dominances over the other teams, but they were able to be like, we've been here before. We know what we're doing. We know how to plan. And you know what? If things aren't going our way, we know it's all right. We just need to keep a cool head. And that's what they were able to do. And the Ravens were not. The Packers were not. The Lions were not. The Dolphins were not. And the Bills were not. So that's what makes these two teams so fascinating to watch, because now they're going to be going up against each other. And it's like, it kind of feels to some degree, who can crumble first? Are they going to drop a couple? Is it going to be a 3rd and short and a drop pass for the Chiefs? And it's like, oh my God, you just went 3 and out. Now you just stalled that drive 3 and out. Like, what the heck? You're giving the ball right back up to the 49ers, right? Like, that's a momentum killer. Or does Purdy throw an interception or get 2 balls batted down? And now Kelsey starts to get anxious, or Kittle starts to get anxious. And McCaffrey, tweaks his calf a little bit. And he's still playing, but they see him working on the sideline. And they're just like, ooh, you hate to see that. Look, see what happens with McCaffrey. He seems to be, kind of jogging on the sideline. I think he wants to go back in. We'll see what Shanahan does. It could easily be one of those things, I mean, it really can. And then, of course, like I always bring up, like, you never know, like, is it going to be a big 60-yard punt return, or you just have no idea. And so it feels to me this game is really just kind of like which kind of will break first. I'm not banking on Mahomes breaking. I'm not banking on Andy Reid coming up with a bad plan, game plan. So it's just like, that's not going to be. And I expect their defense to be good for the Chiefs. But one of their weaknesses is the rush. You have Christian McCaffrey and Debo, for that matter, and Brock Purdy now. So this game to me is just a very unique game with a big giant question mark. The 49ers gave us more question marks to deal with, especially seeing them come from behind, which a lot of people didn't think they could do. They did it back-to-back weeks. Purdy making some pretty unbelievable throws. And Purdy rushing, really scrambling and rushing. And I just am really curious if Shanahan says, if that's there for you, don't force the ball down the field. Take the 7 yards, take the 8 yards, take the 5 yards, take the 4 yards. Because they don't see you as a running quarterback. Get it, slide, stay healthy, keep your head up straight, and let's go. Because we then keep possession, we move the chains, and we keep the Chiefs defense honest. And that could be a complete game changer. Complete game changer. So, but yeah, we can see. Honestly, that's why I'm not really making any true predictions, because I could just see this game going a million different ways. And the fact that Nick Wright is predicting a very specific outcome is just absurd to me. Even if it's true, I promise you, it's just sheer luck. Seriously, it's just sheer luck. If I come to you and keep saying that, I have a die and I'm just going to keep rolling it, and that it's going to roll on 6, it's going to roll on 6. Well, eventually it's going to roll on 6, and I'm going to say, I told you, it's 6. I told you that's what's going to happen. So we shall see. We shall see. But what do you all think? Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl? Chiefs or 49ers, and why? I would absolutely, positively love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please let me know in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really, really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.